Before we keep going, if you haven't heard about Anchor by Spotify, it's the easiest way to get your voice out there. That's who today's episode is sponsored by. Everything is in one place. You have the opportunity to record, edit, host, and distribute in one space, and it's going to be distributed to all of the major podcast platforms when you are ready to publish and get it out there. Now, when I say everything is in one place, I do mean it. This podcast is hosted through Anchor.fm. Now, the best part about it is that it's free. No gimmicks. I'm not taking you down the rabbit hole here. Everything is literally free. You create your account, you go in, and within a couple minutes, you're ready to go. You're set up and you're ready to go. Now, in order to get started, you're going to have to download the app on your phone, or you can head over to Anchor.fm to share and be heard. Now, let's get back to today's episode. Hey, welcome to another episode of Rising Through Concrete. This is your girl DJ, and we are going to get started now. Today, we are focusing on, the topic is entrepreneurship, but I really want to say it's more like work culture, career focused. So the question that we're focusing on today is like ways in which you can improve the work culture. And so topic is work culture, right? It's an interesting one because how can you improve the work culture? I think we oftentimes have a really like broad thought of like how we want to change the work culture. Not saying that we can't. We all go to work or we engage in opportunities to create a work culture where we want to start a business because we know a better way of approaching. Maybe something can get done, or we have innovative ideas that we're ready to get out there. And, what does that look like for us, right? I think things continue to change, evolve, grow past where they currently are. And, it doesn't happen overnight. People will constantly get shut down and shut out. People don't have room at the table to have the right conversations. It could be because of bias. It could be because of prejudice. It could be because, there's not the level of social status to like be a part of the conversations that need to be had to move things forward. But I think it's all a part of the lived experience. It's all a part of circumstance, right? So today's question is really focused around that short conversation, because again, we're in December, so we're working on prompts, right? And today I say it's work culture, it's around entrepreneurship, but the real thinking is like the future. How do we move this forward? How do we think forward about changing the culture of where you work? And so this, you could think in two ways, right? How do you change work culture, or how do you change the culture where you specifically work? So either way, let me know. It's social. We can hit these up again. I think I really want to focus on this one again in 2022. I don't know when, but I really do want to do this one again. It's really exciting. There are 4 areas, because I really thought about this one as we're going into Christmas, and people oftentimes get like seasonal jobs and things like that. But there are like 4 areas where I'm just like, yeah, they've really got to, and when I say they, I mean employers who are well established and have become large corporations or businesses. I think, we all start from one idea and it begins to grow. And I think the mindset that you cannot continue to grow is a dangerous one, right? We oftentimes are, we're very varied in our thinking, where it's like, you can do what you want to do, be what you want to be. And then as soon as you become large, it's like, no, you're too big, don't do it. And so there becomes this change in thinking where you should then begin to dim your light, or you need to now give what you've earned to others. And so I'm interested to figure out and unpack like how we get there. And again, while Rising Through Concrete really is focused on like the coaching aspect of like unpacking like how we continue to move the conversation forward, it's really an opportunity for us to figure out like where is the other side of the conversation, and how do we get there? How do we objectively think through some of these pathways to figure out where we are, where we want to be, and how do we get there, right? So short conversation today, right? And we're already like 4 minutes in on this, right? So the 4 areas that I chose when I talk about changing the culture of where I work, or culture of working, right? I chose education, salary, hiring, and experience. And I feel like I don't really have enough time to talk about it, but like it's one of those things where I love to have these conversations. And so I'm going to talk about education first. Education is one of those things where it's so nuanced, and you could read a book and be well versed. You could live life experience and you could be well versed. But what does it mean to be educated? It really depends on the nature of the work. And so again, my career specifically is a lot of things that make up one thing, right? So my work is in human services, social services, right? It's connecting people to move from and it's really just me trying to make this accessible, right? It's helping people to move from poverty to be self-sufficient. I want to support people who are facing homelessness. I want to support people who are currently using public benefits. I really want to work myself out of a job in that space, right? I want people to be able to access resources that are not public benefits, to be able to have a job that's viable, to be able to have the conversations necessary to like get into where they need to be to take that next step. Understanding everybody doesn't start in the same place, right? We wouldn't have a hierarchy if everybody was at the top, but it's a thing. Now, if I were to go into that job, and this takes me into that salary part of the conversation, because I'm talking about education, right? And I didn't really dig too far into it because we'd be here forever. But just to cap on education, if I go into a job and everybody has a degree, and maybe 3 people say, no, I don't have a degree, but I have 7 years of experience in doing this, and I do understand it, what is that employer looking for? What is the need that's being met? Like, what problem are you trying to solve that I know I can solve, right? It really starts there. And the question asked is, why are you asking for the education and not the experience if this is the problem you're trying to solve? And I think sometimes the education piece comes into play when you have very technical work that needs to be done. And so while I think it's necessary in some fields, it may not be needed in others. And so I think revisiting that conversation is really important, especially now when we talk about the cost of education and where it's located and its access for some communities, right? When we talk about salary, there are some who share that salary should be kept secret. Nobody should share salary, and the other side of that conversation is that, like, no, everybody should be making the same amount for doing the same amount of work, and it is what it is. Now, for those of us who share, keep your salary secret, get what you can get, make as much as you can make, because you may have something over the next person, and that's why you make what you make, great. You can negotiate what you believe your value is. However, the coin can be flipped, that while you think you've negotiated the best amount, you then have the other side of the conversation where we may say, everybody should start with this amount and it is equal until performance is done. And so it's almost a double-edged sword when we talk about salary, and a lot of things can play a role there, which we've seen over years. And of course, there's always a battle about whether it's the gender, whether it's your race or your ethnicity that may play a role. in how much you make when you're going into a role. And so these are things that maybe we want to, again, revisit. And now the conversation in 2021 going into 2022 is, telework, right? Can I work from home? What does that look like? It's really been going on for quite some time, but people are really making it a thing, and it's now becoming the norm. It's becoming more standard to work from home than it is to be in a physical office. Now, why is that? Because the same setup that's happening in the office can take place at home. The problem or challenge with that, though, is that if I am at home, am I more productive? What is being done at home that I was doing in the office? The challenge or downside to that, though, is, was I really only in the office so a supervisor could look at me work? And if the supervisor is looking at me work, then are they working? And that's coming from somebody like me who is a manager who does not micromanage. I am not a micromanager. However, I do set standards, and I've had to learn the hard way at times how to not micromanage and how to really just step back, provide the resources and tools, and expect what I need, and then be willing to really lean in heavily and teach in different methods when something needs to get done, because I do recognize not everyone is me, and everyone learns and retains information differently. And that's the teacher in me, that's the educator in me coming out. When some people are visual, some people are physical learners, logical learners, auditory learners. So sometimes I'm like giving instructions just verbally, and some may get it. Some members on my team get it, and they're like, "Oh, got it. I can take that and I can run." And then some are physical. They're like, "No. I need to schedule time with you, and can you really like break this down? I need to understand some of these other components so I know who I need to go to get some of this work done for the larger projects that I have them go into and do." And that really takes for me to be more intentional about my time and what that looks like. So when we talk about, just looking at how much people are earning or doing with their time throughout the day, it really makes us become more cognizant or more aware of like what is happening in that workday that we have to be considerate of, and where we can do that from, right? So these conversations are happening. That next piece that is really important when it comes to changing the culture, I think, is the hiring piece. I think we're really standard in being really either transactional or emotional when it comes to addressing how we hire people. And I say emotional because sometimes it could be, I have a good feeling about that person. I really want to hire that person. And we don't really think about the other parts at play. That's something that, we do. And it could be, they're a good friend of mine, I'm gonna hire them right on the spot, right? And that's past practice. That's not bad all the time, that especially when you're smaller on a team or you're just starting out. And it may not be an issue when you're larger and you're like, hey, I need somebody I can really rely on, and it's really an emotional connection that you're looking for and you're really trying to fill that gap. But it becomes transactional when you really need something objectively done. And we really have to be intentional about the needs that we're trying to fulfill. So we always can't have that emotional connection to the work. And we have to recognize when it needs to be objective and when we need to be emotional about those connections. Now, why does that need to change and why do we need to revisit it? Is because oftentimes we're not considerate about everybody else that person is going to impact, right? If I have work that needs to get done, I need somebody who can do the work. And I don't need yes people. I need people who are going to tell me when I'm doing something wrong. I need people who are going to tell me when I'm just going too far right or too far left. And they're going to let me know like the who, what, when, where, why, and how, so that I can see all parts of this problem and I can get myself back on track. And if I constantly choose people who are just going to say yes to me, I can't be the best leader possible. So having somebody or having people who are balanced, not just for me, but for the team, who can communicate effectively with one another and balance each other out morally as well, is extremely helpful, because you're going to have those down days where you're going to need somebody to really just pick you up and have like one of those those energies to really just like pull you guys up, and you're going to need people to level set you, where it's like, hey, I know this needs to get done, I know it's kind of hard, but like, hey, let's come back, let's reset, and get this done. It's going to be hard, but let's try this again. And you have to be willing to understand how to lean on one another. And it's not always easy to do it, but it's possible. And so that's one of the things we need to learn how to do in the workplace. But I guess also it depends on the nature of your work. Everybody says they want a professional workspace, but they really don't mean it. They really don't mean it. And you really want a place where you enjoy going every single day, but on those harder days, you really wish it wasn't work. So, I think the key to it is just really being honest with yourself before you create an environment around you that isn't honest. And I think that's really true. The last part of this is experience. And the reason I think experience is one of the ways to change the way we look at work is upward mobility and growth. Oftentimes it's, I need you to have every drop of experience in the world for you to come in and put the screw in the nut. And I'm not saying that putting the screw in the nut is not a viable, profession or a viable career, because it is, most definitely. But where's the upward mobility? What does that look like? How am I benefit to what it is that you're doing, and how do I get there? And if that's not possible, tell me that up front. It's really difficult for people, as is sometimes, to even accept that that's the end and beginning. But don't tell me what's not there. Like, don't sugarcoat it. You don't have to give me the dog and pony show. But if I'm going to be putting the screw in the nut all day, and that's what that is, then make it the best experience for me, but be honest about it. Like, hey, this is your job. However, this screw right here connects to a larger, this is not the larger picture, but you play a key part in that larger picture. If that's what it is, show me the larger picture. How do I contribute? And if you're really invested in me, tell me how you're invested in me. Let me know the larger picture. I can handle it. If I'm not, tell me up front why, who, when, what. I mean, and again, just my personal opinion here, but it helps to honestly map so that the path forward, if there needs to be a next step, is clear, right? And so I know that one was really, really short. Again, I'd love to do this topic again in 2022. So